Welcome everyone. Thanks for coming. Thanks for coming for what is the graveyard shift here at Affiliate Summit. If you made it out today, it means if you have one of two things. You're either really serious about extracting all the value you possibly can from this show, and I can respect that. And you didn't go drinking last night, and you've been good. Or alternatively, you did go drinking and you made it anyway. So congratulations if that's the case. I might even respect that more. So I'm going to be covering content. I'm going to be highlighting a framework for success that I've used over the years that has steadied me well, and it addresses the fundamentals for success online leveraging content. I want to see a quick show of hands as far as who's in the room from the advertiser side, who's in the room from the publisher side, who's in the room from something in between like an agency or a network, and who's not sure why they're in the room. Okay. Okay, cool. So hopefully you find this content useful and informative. It would be too ironic for me to bear if it was not useful or informative, if a presentation about content wasn't good content. So that would be too much irony for me. But anyway, I hope that's not the case. We were given some rules prior to speaking, and those rules included like no jokes, no swearing, no shameless self-promotion, and we're going to be breaking some of those rules because otherwise I really don't have much material, I'm afraid. So let's start with the shameless self-promotion part. I'm David Palmer, GM of Dedicated Media. We're celebrating our 10 years in the business. I've been in the business overall for about nearly 2 decades, and I once was part of the team that built the biggest content site in the world. So hopefully I've got some gems of knowledge to share. So let's move on to what is content. I'm not going to say that content is king, not because I don't believe it, because I do. I'm just so bored of hearing that for the last 10 years. So that's not the purpose of this slide. I just want to talk about the fact that fundamentally, content is a value exchange. It is the user's time in exchange for some form of value. Simple, easy concept to understand, but it is actually quite complicated when you think that oftentimes the content that you're producing is actually to save the user time, which actually highlights just how much of a scarce and incredible resource that user's time is. So what I'm going to be talking about is a lot of fundamentals, a lot of top-level stuff. I do go into some specifics, especially towards the latter half of the speech. So it's about creating value. It's about leveraging the user's time and offering value. The question is who to create value for. If you read any marketing book written from the 1980s onwards, they'll talk about the fact that the consumer is all important. Put the consumer at the center of your organization. Make everything you do about the consumer, and so on and so forth. If you take that to the logical extreme, however, in this example, you're making a lot of user value, end user value, but you're not making value for either the advertisers or yourself as an affiliate. And if you're doing this, essentially you have a hobby and not a business. It's the job of most of us in this room to balance these forces. And when these forces get out of whack, it creates long-term, sustainability problems for your business. You start to focus on customer churn, advertiser churn, and not focusing on, moving your business forward inch by inch and addressing the fundamentals of your business in order to be successful. So here's another example of how you can get it wrong. There are affiliates out there that only create value for themselves. They're predatory affiliates. They don't create value for end users per se. They don't create value for advertisers along the way. They're out there churning through opportunities and just making as much money as you can. Put your hand up in the room if you're one of those people. It's all right. We know who you are. It's okay. So the bottom line is, for long-term sustainability, for long-term value creation, I would argue that the little p, the little dot needs to be there. You need to create a lot of user value. You need to create a lot of advertiser value. And if you can get some value for yourself throughout the process, then that's the recipe for a long-term sustainable business. that works for everyone. Now, it's normal and acceptable for that P to move about, to migrate throughout the course of your business. Maybe it starts off in one of the extremes, but eventually moves to a more central position. The other point is, it's impossible to pitch every piece of content perfectly to make sure that you're making value and you're attributing value for each one of these, readers and affiliates and advertisers perfectly every time. But on the balance of things, the value prop that you should provide should sort of balance out here, unless you, otherwise you're going to result in sort of sustainability problems. So let's talk about the forms of content and the forms of value creation. Content basically falls down into two main groups. There's content that informs, there's content that entertains. Great content sometimes does both. Poor content does neither. 90% of the stuff I read on Facebook does neither. But the bottom line is, neither one of these groups are easier than the other. To produce great content that informs is hard work. To create great content that entertains is also hard work. However, there are some trade-offs and some considerations as far as what paths you guys choose to go down. For instance, when it comes to information that informs, that has some form of utility. It's easy to understand why a reader is at that site. What are they looking to glean from that information? There is a strong intent signal normally with information that informs, that allows you to understand how to monetize that content. It's actually difficult to scale, though. That's the issue with information that informs. It's not like entertainment content that has the capability to go viral easily and produce huge scale. The problem, however, with entertainment content is that it's harder to understand that intent signal. They're there to be entertained. They're not necessarily there to consume information that's a direct path or a direct corollary with something that you can monetize. So with entertainment content, you have to go through the traditional advertising interrupt process before you can monetize, and ultimately the intent signals from that kind of stuff is going to be less. So I talk about intent signals and I talk about value because this is essentially what our jobs are as marketing people. Our jobs are to create value, to deliver customers to advertisers with an intent of making a purchase. So, we've got content that has value. We've got ways in which we can produce that value. But how do you know if you're doing a good job? So this is something that I've relied on, and this is something that I try and sort of espouse and talk to all the publishers that I work with a lot. Become a data-driven marketer. Oftentimes when you're a content producer, you start off working from intuition. You start off working from feelings. You have a kinship with your audience, and you write from the heart, and it's a very creative process, and that's great, and you need that creativity. But the truth of the matter is that's very difficult to scale, because maybe the site owner has that kinship, but maybe the subsequent people that they employ throughout the organization doesn't have that voice, doesn't have that ability to do that. So coupled with the fact, intuition and feelings are abstract, whereas metrics and data are science, and it leads to a much more concrete understanding of your business and a much more systematic and methodical way to march forward. So if you're a heavily intuition-based creative writer, I really urge you to go back to that concept of value creation. Understand how you're creating value and create key performance indicators for yourself regarding the value that you bring to the table. So you can measure the value that you bring into the table for readers, for advertisers, and for yourself. And, be wary of bog standard KPIs, the stuff that come with Omniture or Google Analytics or any of those companies. Develop KPIs that are unique to you. Measure them daily. Make them a pulse sheet for your business, because this pulse sheet getting intimate with the data will serve you when it comes to knowing how to move your business forward. I always recommend that this kind of data and this kind of dashboard should be on a single sheet of paper. There's oftentimes interdependencies between the data. You can drive up, clicks, but conversions can drive down in a very sort of simplistic way, a very simplistic example rather. But seeing those interdependencies on one sheet allows you to understand if you actually are making steps forward or not. It's a critical component that I've used throughout my career, and it becomes the strategy. The pulse sheet feeds up areas of information, areas of weakness that you can address and move the business forward. Does anyone in here today use dashboards or pulse sheets or anything along what I'm talking about? Okay, few people. That's not uncommon. Now the last point on this is, remember these are people. When you develop these KPIs and you develop these numbers, oftentimes you can forget that these are people. You can abstract the data to the point where you're losing the buyer behavior in the process. So, don't forget that obvious point. So, throughout every online organization that I've worked over the years, they've always had these fundamental elements, these fundamental pillars. These exist on the publisher side as well as the advertiser side. Now these pillars represent a sort of foundational strategy of being successful online. Distribution, driving eyeballs to your site. Conversion, converting those eyeballs into money in some monetary event. Retention, retaining those eyeballs, getting those visitors to come back again and again. And lastly, ancillary revenue, making sure you're making money around the edges of your conversion funnel. Now, for me, it's the job of all site owners, publishers, bloggers, affiliates, whatever you want to call it, to understand these principles, understand these pillars, and to consistently work on them in order to test and iterate ideas to move the business forward. There are literally hundreds of things that I've done throughout my career in each one of these pillars, and it's driven from the pulse sheet. The pulse sheet tells you where the weaknesses are in your business, and then you categorize them into these pillars and work on them in a systematic way. The pillars are like any structure. They have to be equal in length and strong in order to support your overall organization. If you're strong in a few areas of these pillars and weak in the others, it's gonna create organizational issues. You're gonna be great at driving traffic, but poor at monetizing that traffic. You're gonna be great at getting a one-time conversion, but poor at creating lifetime value. So these pillars are the sort of fundamentals for success that I've leveraged, and I've continually grinded on them over the years in order to eke out more and more performance. Running tests. Who here does A/B testing, multivariate testing? Okay, keep your hand up if testing is your religion, because honestly, it becomes that way. Testing is an insurance policy about making bad decisions. It's it's a way back if you make a wrong decision. It gives you the sort of track record. It's a great leveler in any debate. I'm the manager, but maybe I don't know everything. Let the data decide. Let's run a test. When the stakes get high enough, the option of not testing just isn't viable. At times I've been working with $1 million ad budget. It's not $1 million a month ad budget, and when you're dealing with those kinds of dollars, making a wrong decision has huge financial implications. So test, grind on these pillars and nudge the business forward. Percentage by percentage, basis point, whatever. You combine those wins, and soon it starts to be, real value and real movement forward and defensible movement forward against your competitors. Now, I've included an appendix in this presentation with lots and lots of ideas here to allow you to sort of test and try and work with. I didn't want to go through each one of those 100 ideas painfully one by one. Instead, refer to that appendix, test some of those concepts and try it for yourself. That's an example of the appendix to show you I wasn't lying. So now let's talk about the challenges of the content business. I mean, we all know original, beautiful, informative editorial is hard and expensive to produce. We know that driving traffic to that website using paid methods is also expensive and, difficult to do. Whilst the incremental value of those users that acquired, on your website is low. So you've got this kind of imbalance between, effort going out and return going back. For those people like me that lived through the, first .bomb episode in '99, there was a big realization that advertising is not going to be able to, fund businesses. It's not going to be able to be used to acquire customers and then monetize those customers at a rate that makes a machine tick over in perpetuity. There's a lot of other factors that have to come into play, which is what's led to the kind of revolution that we're looking at today. So this is the problem. And I'm going to do my best to give you some solutions to this problem, because no one's here to listen to problems. So as far as solutions to that fundamental challenge of content marketing, let's talk a little bit about when I was a boy running a marketing company. Having no budget sucked. Right? It was difficult. It was like being a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. It was just no fun. Today, though, kids today have a word for it. They call it growth hacking, which sounds cool. But seriously, growth hacking is awesome stuff. It's basically it's a collection of ideas around all the ways in which you can nudge your business forward without spending a lot of money. Make sure you're Googling that term. Make sure you're hearing about tips and tricks and techniques. And again, I've included a few examples in the appendix for growth hacking techniques. I talked a lot about like data-driven strategies and compounding your wins. It's a super important way in which you nudge your business forward and build a defensible strategy. I talked about sustainability as far as making sure that you're creating value in the right way so that your time is focused on moving your business forward and not on addressing churn or any other negative effects that happen. Another key point is understand where you sit in the value chain, right? The value chain that most of us are working within this room is sort of somewhat typical of that, right? Like all chains, the longer the value chain, the more communication along that chain gets eroded, the more the advertiser's goals get diluted. Like if you're working with, monetization partners and they're talking to you about campaigns such as drive these clicks, drive these leads, drive these impressions, you're only hearing part of the story, because 9 times out of 10 advertisers aren't in the business of driving clicks or driving impressions. They're in the business of creating sales, return on investment, lifetime value, average order value, all of the sort of more fundamental things that are key. That's the sort of key goals that they're looking to achieve. So I would encourage all of you to work with upstream partners that share that information readily. Another factor is, you want to be working with partners that are providing feedback. Binary feedback, such as campaign didn't work or did work, is virtually useless. You need deep, granular feedback to allow you to optimize. And whenever we're working with people, we're always trying to provide what's called a feedback loop and provide feedback all the way up the chain. So choose your partners wisely. Make sure you know where you stand in the value chain. Make sure that you're getting to the heart of the matter as far as what the campaign is about, and make sure you're getting that feedback. So another part of the solution to the challenge of content marketing is to set you guys up to get at the easy money. For years, affiliates have been working at the sharp end of this funnel. They've been working on the difficult stuff, right? Which is generating sales, generating highly qualified leads. It's all, difficult to do. But there's been an awakening from the agency community around the value of affiliate marketing, around the value of content, and what content can do to create intent and value and conversions and ROI and all that good stuff. That awakening has come about for two main reasons. One, there was an over-focus on the sharp end of the conversion funnel. There was a lot of excitement about CPA, but if you constantly optimize the sharp end of the funnel, if you constantly weed out the players at that sharp end of the funnel that aren't meeting your overall metrics, all you're doing is shrinking your overall market size. And as marketers, our job is to grow the market. Leave it to the accountants to shrink the market. There was that over focus on the sharp end, and there was the realization that if you're going to increase the market size, you actually have to add more people in through the top of the funnel, and you need to reward affiliates for doing that value creation for you, for stimulating that initial sale. So the tools and the concern have kind of coincided. There's a lot of tools out there today that help advertisers understand what they call attribution. Attribution is basically attributing value throughout all of the contact points on the customer journey, right? And advertisers have their own unique model, often cases, for that specific attribution. There's companies out there that allow them to build models, run what-if analysis and things like that. Omniture, Google, Tagman, to name just a few. Any of the advertisers in the room use an attribution model? Okay. I can tell you it's absolutely coming. It's in a lot of the conversations that I talk about all day long. And it's great news for affiliate marketers because it's going to allow you to get at that easy money. What I'll say about attribution, though, is, don't get bogged down too much in the details of exactly how the attribution works and how the model works for two reasons. One, I think there's an easier way to wrap your head around it. And two, 9 times out of 10, your advertisers aren't actually going to share that information, unfortunately. Their specific attribution model is their competitive advantage. And like any kid with a new toy, they tend to hold it very, very tightly and not share that information. It's unfortunate because as you exist in that value chain and you're trying to create value for them, it's hard if you don't have the entire sort of full deck of information as far as what they perceive value to be. But so, if any advertisers out there are considering attribution, I would encourage you to, be generous with how you value your media and how you let your downstream partners know how you're valuing that media. And if you do want to make it defensible, have them sign NDAs. But the worst thing you can do to someone who's like a publisher or a network or an agency that's trying to work with you is to have them work with you in a binary way, to have them drive traffic without sharing with them how that traffic is valued. So when it comes to attribution, think of the picture, okay? Don't get hung up on the names or the exact mechanisms to how that value is created. Just think of the picture. Is the advertiser attributing value at the front end of the funnel? Okay, well that's awareness building type activity. Is the advertiser attributing value at the back end of the funnel? That's last click attribution that we're all familiar with. Is the advertiser spreading value out equally across the funnel? So visualize the attribution model and don't get carried away with the semantics of how the attribution is exactly tracked, because it's going to be somewhat fuzzy anyway. So, content marketing, advertising through content is another word for it, of course. Native, very popular. I even featured on John Oliver the other night, so it must be going mainstream. It's the realization that content is super important in the overall value chain. It's the realization that bloggers are phenomenally strong at creating intent. It's hot because, you know, the way people interact today, they're far, with websites, they're far more influenced by personal spheres of influence, and advertisers are waking up to that. In other words, gone are the days where huge multinationals control all the media exposure. You're now far more likely to be influenced by that blog that you love to read, that social media experience. The things that are closer to you carry much, much more impact, especially if it's in a voice and a persona that you're familiar with. So advertisers, you know, advertising agencies are realizing that fact and looking to leverage that. The quality of traffic that's driven through native, when it's done right, is incredibly high. From our experience, it's akin to organic search as far as how it performs from a conversion and from a quality perspective. So, you know, for advertisers, in a nutshell, it works. The ROI is there. But it's going through teething trouble. Agencies still want to price it in the same way they price traditional media. They want to look at it, you know, as a view-based or a click-based mechanism, and that basically devalues the process of content curation and content promotion, you know, the basic work that goes into producing that content, if you're going to treat it just like an typical ad exposure. The other things that agencies struggle with is, you know, ownership versus control. They want this to be in advertisers' voices. They want their the advertisers' persona to create brand affinity and to allow publishers to evangelize the product in their own words. But they're very worried about, you know, is that going to get away from them? Are people going to say things that they shouldn't say? So there's this battle going on right now between, you know, ownership of the voice and control of the voice versus the ability to truly leverage native and bloggers and affiliates, because affiliates, you're a scary bunch of people, particularly to agencies. So that's what we try and work with all day long, as far as, like, these aren't rogue individuals that are out for themselves. There's a lot of really great professional marketers that do a fantastic job of, you know, creating intent and value. So, you know, those are the issues, and I actually think that for advertisers that can figure out those issues, there's a lot of opportunity. I think it's good for you affiliates to start thinking about that stuff now. Be comfortable with the fact that there's going to be a lot of back and forth. You're going to write your article, you're going to submit it to a network or an agency, they're going to submit it to the client, it's going to come back with changes, maybe again, maybe a couple of times, but that's just the nature of the beast right now until some of these teething trouble gets worked out. But I think it is going to get worked out. I'm a huge proponent of hybrid deal constructs when it comes to native. I think that, you know, the pendulum can swing towards, you know, only pay-per-post opportunities. And while that's great for affiliates, I think it kind of hurts advertisers in the long run if you're not actually producing traffic at a level that they're expecting, because they're still, you know, they still have people to answer to at the end of the day, and they're still looking for that ROI. You know, the early days of native, you have companies out there writing $5,000 checks to publishers for 500 impressions, and we can all see that that's not as great one time, but it's not a sustainable business. At the same token, neither is expecting a publisher to write beautiful content, take excellent photos, do all this content curation work, and do it especially upper funnel content creation work, and expect to be paid on a downstream, down funnel event. That doesn't work either. You guys, rightly so, have been focused on landing pages and squeeze pages and conversion focused marketing for a long time. But the hybrid model, I think, is the answer. That basically allows some pay-per-post dollars to flow your way for actually doing the job of content creation while making some scalable money on the downstream. And that's the sort of way in which we're going to be pushing out these opportunities as they come across. Here's some examples of some of our publishers that put together some native posts for us. And as you can sort of see, it's not your typical affiliate marketing. I love affiliate marketing. I've been in it for years, but it can tend to be a little bit gaudy, in your face, hitting you over the head with sort of conversion-focused landing pages with flashing buttons and strong call to action, where this is a lot more agency-centric, upper funnel, content-rich, which is what agencies are going to go for. So in order to capitalize upon this native opportunity, in order to get essentially the easy money that exists for generating view-based impressions, not click and sale-based impressions, then you need to change your lexicon a little bit. You need to understand the terminologies that come with this new business, right? We're not talking about, conversion funnels per se anymore. We're talking about customer journeys. And it's a small difference, but it's an important one. I would encourage all of you to think about the customer journeys for the campaigns that you're working on and create a content arc around those customer journeys. Buyers have a typical behavior. They go through the process of firstly understanding their problems, looking at all the different solutions that could potentially address their problems, and then once they've got to a somewhat smaller solution set, they start to leverage things like comparison engines, sites that rank different solutions. Now, if you actually produce those sites that rank and keep them updated, it's very sticky content. It's very SEO friendly. It's very reusable, and it's a super useful and interesting component in the customer journey. So you've got these comparison engines, you've got these sites that rank content, and then moving down, you start to get into the more of the detailed tech specs, reviews, the granularity of the product choices. And at this point, it's a very good opportunity to offer up alternatives and to start another customer journey, another content arc around a different solution set to allow you to monetize people that have potentially made it to that point but realize this isn't the product set for them. And then lastly, you start to get into the realm that you guys are mostly playing in, which is the sort of discounts, free trials, coupons, strong calls to action, and the stuff that closes. This stuff has traditionally been the realm of affiliate marketers because it works, it creates conversion, it's awesome. But this is the least attractive to advertising agencies. So if you want to get those higher brow, easy to get dollars, then you have to move up from being these coupon sites, discount sites, strong call to action, and create more content at the upper end of the funnel. And it's fine to have this content at the bottom end of the funnel that converts, because then you're just going to own more pieces of the attribution ultimately. But in order for us as upstream partners to sell that through to agencies, we can't go in with a coupon site regardless of how beautiful you think it looks. 9 times out of 10, when native or content type opportunities come across our desk and we're looking for distribution and we would go to the affiliates to get that distribution, the one caveat is no coupon sites. And the reason why is because it's hard to present that it's hard for agencies to present that to clients without it coming across as discounting their brand. Or hurting the average order value, or hurting the lifetime value, all of the things that advertisers care about ultimately. So, I've kind of whizzed through this, but the stuff that I've talked about as far as creating value, measuring value, knowing who to create value for, and then building a pulse sheet and continually optimizing against that value means you can, if you do that, you can pretty readily check the optimize box. You're all marketers that have a data-driven strategy to systematically move your business forward and optimize around the elements that affect your business. That's awesome. I'd urge you though to think about ways in which you can personalize. Personalization is so often not done, and in my experience it's equally as valuable as optimization. There's so much money that's left on the table from personalization. You guys all have data. You all have cookie-based data that you can leverage. I strongly encourage you to brainstorm on this and think about ways you can personalize. There's lots of tools out there that allow you to personalize and automate simultaneously. Tools within WordPress, tools within your email service provider. There's lots of ways to allow you to do this, and it's big dollars that are unlocked. And lastly, predict. That's my kind of nod to the future. There are companies out there that are leveraging the on-site content, the big data that exists out there, and building predictive models to, put the right content in front of the person at the right time based upon, an artificially intelligent algorithm. There's companies out there that are looking at that like Parsley, and if any of you guys are doing that in the room, well, then you scare me. But thanks for your time, guys. Appreciate it. Hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you'll see it for what it is, which is a framework, a strategy, a methodology for you to systematically move your business forward. And I've talked to you about content and how you can get involved with the attribution revolution. Anyone have any questions? Yep. Yeah. So Dave Palmer, General Manager of Dedicated Media, 20 years in direct marketing. I've had several exits throughout my career, MySpace being a big one. So. Anything else? All right, thanks guys. Appreciate it.